On January 5, 2025, a quiet day, but no one in the small town where Pastor I.V Hilliard's church was located felt at peace. Amid the gloomy expanse of the gray sky, the news of his death sent shockwaves through the community. Pastor Hilliard was not only a religious leader but also a symbol of faith, hope, and unity. He built a church that was not merely a place of worship but a home of love, where people could find comfort and motivation in difficult times. However, in recent months, the optimism in his voice had gradually faded. Those close to Hilliard noticed an instability in his soul, something intangible yet strong enough to raise their concerns. He often wandered alone on late evenings after completing his daily tasks. At times, his footsteps seemed quieter, drifting through familiar streets without a clear purpose. The congregation often felt he was like a ghost hovering between the rows of seats, looking at people but unable to connect with anyone. As the colors of winter flowers surrendered to the chill of seasonal winds, Hilliard no longer radiated the vitality he once did. Although he continued to attend services regularly, leading prayers and delivering sermons, the light in his eyes slowly dimmed. His sermons grew somber and occasionally melancholic, filled with sadness and anguish, as if he were struggling amidst thoughts he couldn't free himself from. The night before his tragic death, the sky was adorned with twinkling stars. But for Hilliard, it was not a beautiful scene. His hands clutched an old Bible tightly, constantly searching for the light. In moments of silence, he sensed a palpable loneliness, as if a shadow was relentlessly trailing him. He wrestled with self-recriminations and questions about why he couldn't maintain the spirit that his congregation had expected of him. As dawn broke, the church bells echoed throughout the small town, awakening the residents with unimaginable news. His neighbor discovered his lifeless body hanging in his home, creating an atmosphere of mourning that enveloped everywhere. This was not just the death of a pastor. It was the heart of the community, the structure of faith and hope that had been torn apart. Immediate questions flooded people's minds. How could someone who devoted his life to helping others leave this world in such despair? The scene at the church grew cold. The damp atmosphere and sorrow hung like a heavy fog. Groups of people gathered, hands clasped tightly, with no one speaking to the other. The silence of pain and disbelief became the common language in the air. Eyes filled with tears, drops fell incessantly, and choked sobs merged together, creating a symphony of grief. Pastor Hilliard's past sermons suddenly came alive in everyone's minds. They recalled every word, every smile, and moments he immersed himself in the joy of his congregation. They remembered how he brought safety amid life's tempests. Now, losing him felt like losing a part of their own souls. Those who had listened to him preach and had been encouraged and uplifted during tough times now faced a heartbreaking reality. Why did he end his life when he was the one who spread the message of love and hope? A memorial service for him was quickly arranged. The entire community flocked to the church, the place that held beautiful memories and great beliefs. Hundreds of people, from young teens to elderly folks, came to express their condolences and respect for the one who had just departed. Each of them carried stories about Hilliard, from the times he advised them in their struggles to the smiles and warm looks he had given them. During the service, as people stood gathered together, some children quietly said they would always remember his smile. Some elderly people recalled his sermons as if they still echoed in their hearts. One congregant stood up and shared that, although he had passed, he had left behind strength for the people to continue living with the spirit he had strived to impart. In his memory, the parishioners decided to establish a fund called Light of Hope, aimed at supporting those in need of psychological help, emphasizing the importance of mental health care. They knew that Pastor Hilliard himself had silently struggled with pains and pressures that few understood. In this way, the community hoped to create a safe space for everyone, where they could freely share their anxieties, fears, and traumas that they were grappling with. Counseling sessions, gatherings, and sharing experiences were planned monthly at the church. Witnessing changes in the following months, the people felt they were no longer alone. They began discussing grief, loving each other more, and helping one another heal their wounds. The crowds no longer just focused on religious rituals but became places of listening, where people could stand up and share their own stories. Life in the community gradually returned to its course, with joyful evenings together, laughter echoing among those mastering the art of sharing sorrow. For many, the ability to express themselves truly was a great gift. They understood that strength and courage lay not only in seeking perfection but also in the ability to accept the imperfections of each individual. As the final memorial flame was lit on a calm evening, everyone's hearts turned towards the name Hilliard and the memories. What he left behind would always be a part of their lives. They looked up at the starry sky, as if it were the pastor's eyes smiling down, supporting them. The memories of him became a reflective mirror, reminding them to always live authentically and courageously. Ultimately, the death of Pastor I.V Hilliard was not merely a loss but a powerful reminder of the importance of mental health care and the necessity of truly living. Though he was no longer in this world, the legacy he left would forever live in the hearts of the people. They would continue to nurture the love he had sown and recognize that life, with all its beauty and challenges, is a journey in which everyone could write their story. The people in the community vowed not to let the unspoken pains of other members remain a secret. They would continue to welcome each other with open arms, with sincere inquiries and loving conversations. They remembered Pastor Hilliard and committed to doing everything possible to maintain the light he had ignited, so that no one would have to walk the lonely path in the hidden corners of their souls without someone to hold their hand. Knowing that each person had their own battle, the community yearned to build a place where everyone could find support, as they had learned that strength comes from sincerely opening up and sharing with one another. The passing of Pastor I.V Hilliard had ignited in them a stronger will to live together, support one another, and continuously strive towards the light in the days ahead. The small town where Pastor I.V Hilliard lived lay nestled among towering mountains, with a distinctly four-season climate. In spring, the town blossomed with colors from blooming flowers. In summer, sunlight stretched across bustling streets. In autumn, trees turned golden and red, stirring the heart. And in winter, snow blanketed every corner, creating a scene reminiscent of a fairy tale. All these elements blended to create a fresh atmosphere, close to nature. Although small, the town was a melting pot of many cultures. The residents, with diverse customs, painted a rich cultural tapestry. Some came from afar seeking opportunity, while others settled from generation to generation, all contributing to the town's unique identity. Traditional festivals were held year-round, from spring tree festivals to autumn fairs, establishing strong connections within the community. The church where Pastor Hilliard worked, located at the heart of the town, was one of the oldest structures, holding many memories of its people. With its ancient brick walls and towering steeple, the church was not only a place of prayer but also a venue for events, gatherings, and community activities. The interior was always filled with light from the stained glass windows, creating a solemn yet warm atmosphere. Pastor I.V Hilliard, born into a family with a long-standing religious tradition, realized his calling early on as a boy. He received education at a prestigious seminary, which shaped his philosophy of life and strong beliefs. He often shared stories of sitting at the dinner table with his family, where stories of love, forgiveness, and the importance of faith were passed on. His sermons went beyond merely conveying religious messages. He emphasized encouraging people to live positively and care for each other. When he arrived to serve as a pastor in the church, he immediately captured the community's attention. With his resonant voice and profound sermons, he easily touched people's hearts. Hilliard was not just a spiritual leader but also a friend, a guide in the lives of each congregant. He organized Bible study programs for children, helping them better understand their faith while creating a joyful and happy environment. However, it was well known to all that behind his smile and enthusiasm, Pastor Hilliard also faced numerous pressures. He was the first to arrive at the church and the last to leave, working tirelessly from organizing festivals to participating in community activities. One beautiful Saturday morning, Hilliard woke up feeling eager. Today, he would hold a grand ceremony to celebrate those who contributed greatly to the community. He had meticulously prepared for this event, from the sermon script to the musical selections he would choose. Although everything seemed to go smoothly, an inexplicable anxiety began to loom over him. As the ceremony took place, he felt he was surrounded by his dearest friends. The sounds of joyful music and laughter filled the air. However, for a moment, he paused and looked around. He sensed something was amiss. A wave of worry engulfed him. Do people truly understand what I am trying to convey? Am I capable enough to lead them? After the festival concluded, Pastor Hilliard returned home, a place where he always felt at peace. But that evening, in the stillness of the room, unease washed over him again. He sat at his desk, candle flickering, his heart tightening with relentless questions echoing in his mind. If I cannot keep this community strong, then am I still their pastor? The church was not only where Hilliard worked but also his home, the place he felt most connected to. In the mornings, he often rose early, sitting in his small office, which held a simple altar and shelves filled with Bibles. Each page seemed to be imbued with memories from solemn services and the stories of congregants. Weekly, Pastor Hilliard hosted numerous activities, from Sunday night services to Bible discussions and charity programs. He had implemented a special initiative. Once a month, he invited the entire community to the church for a love feast, where people could gather, share food, and discuss their family histories. During these feasts, he often sat among everyone, listening to their life stories. There were heartfelt thanks from those who received help during tough times, along with stories of misfortune that he could never forget. That was the reason he felt he was not just a pastor but also a bridge connecting hearts. The relationship between Pastor Hilliard and his congregants was not merely a dynamic between a leader and followers. He took the time to understand the concerns of each person in the community. Meetings over hot tea and simple dinners with families were not just conversations but opportunities for him to connect, share, and deepen his understanding of the challenges each member faced. Once, he met a young couple struggling to raise their children. They came to him, sharing their worries about their children's future. Instead of merely providing advice, he suggested they spend time engaging in soul-healing activities, such as volunteering for the homeless. The closeness brought about by these activities helped them not only to overcome their challenges but also to strengthen their family bond. Pastor Hilliard not only listened but also shared his life experiences. He often recounted his memories, the mistakes he had overcome, and even the small victories. That was how he helped everyone feel that, no matter how tough life got, they could stand strong together. Although Pastor Hilliard was seen as a model of compassion and resilience in the eyes of many, he too had to face his own internal battles. At night, as the candlelight dimmed, feelings of loneliness and anxiety would again envelop him. He often contemplated the demands the community placed on him, feeling as though each heart he had to uphold weighed heavily on his shoulders. There were times when he felt inadequate to meet all the expectations from the congregants. He worried about whether he could make people happy or if he could restore faith to those who had lost it. The pressure of bearing such great responsibilities sometimes left him feeling drained and exhausted. However, he always found ways to seek comfort. He wrote in a journal to express his thoughts, conveying feelings that he could hardly share with anyone else. Each page transformed into a trusted friend, a place where he could open up without fear of judgment. He also sought solace in nature, frequently walking on serene early mornings by the lake near his home, where the peacefulness calmed his soul. Things began to change as time passed. Some days, Pastor Hilliard felt increasingly fatigued. His usually radiant face grew weary and pale. He no longer found joy in activities he had once cherished. When he looked in the mirror, it seemed he no longer recognized his own reflection, and feelings of being lost saturated his mind. Anxiety escalated like a storm, sweeping away any tranquility left in his soul. He started struggling with sleep, often waking up in the middle of the night with racing thoughts. Services that usually brought him comfort now felt like a burden. He feared he wouldn't be able to convey the messages of hope people anticipated from him. Each time he stepped up to preach, his feet felt heavy, as if he were walking on ice, and anxiety drowned his thoughts. For the first time, Pastor Hilliard couldn't find the right words to uplift the community, something he had always done easily. He felt as though he were adrift in a murky ocean, where light was merely a distant memory. One afternoon, a young congregant named Anna approached him after the service. She was one of the members he had guided and admired him greatly. They had profound conversations about life, faith, and future dreams. Anna sensed something different about Pastor Hilliard. Instead of sharing liveliness and good fortune, that day he only quietly listened to her, with distant eyes. She sat beside him in a palpable silence enveloping the space. Finally, in a moment of heartfelt sincerity, she asked, "Pastor, are you going through something? Can we help you in any way?" That question felt like a refreshing stream of water touching his parched heart. Hilliard felt a lump in his throat. Initially, he intended to nod in denial, but he paused, looking directly into Anna's sincere eyes. I feel tired," he sighed. "It feels like I am not strong enough to bear everyone's expectations." That dialogue opened a door he hadn't anticipated. Anna listened and shared her own thoughts about pressures and concerns of youth. The conversation not only helped him express his feelings but also showed that even a guide needs support. They cried together, reminisced about joyful memories, and suddenly realized that the connection existed not only between leader and followers but also among hearts fighting the same battles. In the following weeks, Pastor Hilliard's mental health did not improve. He spent more time in his room, turning down invitations to services, and gradually stopped organizing the love feasts he had once taken pride in. People began to worry as they noticed he was no longer present as frequently as before. His vicar also noticed the change. In a reassuring phone call, the vicar invited him out for coffee, but Hilliard merely mumbled a noncommittal response. Guilt welled up inside him for feeling that he wasn't living up to the role of a leader. He knew people were worried, but he lacked the energy to face the effects of his absence. The sense of disconnect from the community seemed to make him lose himself further. On a cold winter day, as snow began to fall gently like white petals, news of Pastor Hilliard's death suddenly spread throughout the community. He had passed away in his sleep, his heart stopping while wrapped in his familiar robe. This left everyone in shock. That day, the entire town seemed to go silent, devoid of sound. Residents began gathering at the church, where he had devoted his life to service. Pain filled the whispers of stories shared. What did he do to deserve us? He was always our leader, our friend, our father. People shared precious memories of him, recalling the times he had counseled them and the joyful moments spent together. On the funeral day, colorful flowers adorned the space, surrounding his simple wooden coffin. The atmosphere was thick with silence, broken only by stifled sobs. People from all over the town came to pay their respects, their faces solemn, eyes full of sorrow. The vicar stood to speak, and everyone listened intently. Pastor Hilliard was the light in our lives. Despite the hardships, he never abandoned us. He sowed seeds of love, and now it's our responsibility to nurture them. His words stirred the overwhelming nostalgia that everyone felt. The presence of Anna, the young girl who had once questioned him about his sorrow, seemed to deepen the pain further. She requested to speak and, in a trembling voice, said, "Pastor Hilliard taught us how to love, and now we must love each other more than ever, so that he may live on in our hearts." Tears streamed down everyone's faces, as if they were collectively accepting a grief they had never imagined. Stories about Pastor Hilliard continued to flow, each person relating their own memory of him. Some recounted instances where he supported their families through financial crises, while others recognized the hope in their lives upon receiving letters from him. People embraced one another, sharing stories, memories, and joyful moments spent with him. Each story was saturated with affection and gratitude. Young people became increasingly aware of the impact he left on them, and they collectively resolved to preserve his legacy. They decided to establish a charity fund in his name to continue the community service activities he had begun. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe to motivate me to create even better videos. I look forward to seeing you in